A couple of months ago, in the midst of a relegation battle, Leeds United took a gamble and hired the American coach Jesse Marsch. And after keeping them in the league, he's decided to make some huge investments to bring in USMNT players Brenden Aaronson from RB Salzburg and Tyler Adams from RB Leipzig. So today, we're going to talk about those signings, how they're going to fit into the team, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing there are so many Americans at one Premier League club. So let's jump right into the video. All right, joining me today to talk about Leeds United, I decided the best thing we could do is bring in a Leeds United fan who can give us a much better perspective about the team and how Aaronson and Adams are going to fit in, and Jesse Marsch and what this team is going to look like next season. So, Henry Chibib, welcome for the first time to the channel. Anything you want to say to lead off?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be a really exciting season. Like, since I've been a Leeds fan and obviously a national team fan, I would have never thought that we'd have an American coach, let alone two players. So, it's a really exciting time to be a Leeds fan, American Leeds fan especially.
Well, yeah, we'll start with the arrivals of Brenden Aaronson for 30 plus million from RB Salzburg, and for $24 million, Tyler Adams from RB Leipzig. So right off the bat, do you think that these are good value for money signings? We already know, a lot of the viewers will obviously know about Brenden Aaronson, about Tyler Adams, what their qualities are. But do you think they overpaid for them at all?
It's a bit of a risk. We did pay a lot. Like 30 million is not cheap for a guy that has Austrian Bundesliga experience. I really believe in Aaronson. I think that he is going to be a great player for this system, and it's going to work out. But still, 30 million, that's quite the risk. I think we could have gotten perhaps a player of a similar quality for less. And I actually particularly think that it might have been overpaid since there wasn't much competition either. I know AC Milan wanted him, but it's not like we were battling out with other top clubs that were throwing around tons of money. So I do feel like we did probably overpay a bit. And for Adams as well, I probably would have paid 15 million pounds, somewhere around there. But Jesse wanted his guys, and Orta backed him. They gave him the cash, and so no excuses now. I think these are going to be good players, but yeah, perhaps a bit of an overpay on both of those.
I do think, though, that stylistically they are good fits. The way that Jesse Marsch wants to gegenpress, building off of the way that Bielsa played the high energy soccer. I do think that Aaronson is a perfect fit for that, and Tyler Adams as well, both of them coming from the Red Bull system. It's just a perfect fit. Marsch as well, of course. So last season, at the end of the season, Marsch kind of had to abandon his preferred 4-2-2-2 formation just because of the players he had available, and in part the injury to Patrick Bamford as well, him being mostly unavailable. But with Rafinha leaving, do you think we'll see that 4-2-3-1 again that we saw last season, or will Marsch maybe try to fit back in that 4-2-2-2 that he had at Leipzig and Salzburg and even back in New York, where Aaronson and Adams seem like perfect fits for both those attacking midfield and defensive midfield roles?
Yeah, I think it still depends on who we get in the transfer market, because there are rumors swirling around that we're getting that Belgian kid. His name is like De Ketelaere or something like that. De Ketelaere. There's another French striker that we're rumored to get. It depends on if we get another striker, because the difference is whether we have a guy playing second striker behind Bamford or something, or if he's playing as more of a 10. That's really the main difference. And as of right now, we're not going to play Bamford and Gelhardt up top. We have more talented players than that. So I think as of right now, it would be a 4-2-3-1, and Aaronson could either play as that 10 or maybe on the wing. But yeah, it depends. If we get another striker, I think it's totally possible we go back to that 4-2-2 and see Aaronson more as that wide, sort of a wide 10 that Marsch likes to play. But regardless, I think both of those players have a role that they'll do well in. I think Adams is pretty much guaranteed to play in that double pivot with Raka, and Aaronson is either going to find a spot on the wing or as the 10. I think they'll get tons of playing time.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Aaronson's best role is as kind of one of those wide tens. He's not necessarily a playmaker, but he can do a lot of that work in behind the strikers. But with Adams, we know what his big limitation is, and that is passing the ball, long passing in particular. He's not really a great passer. He's excellent defensively. His ball winning statistics are right up there with N'Golo Kante, but he just can't translate that on the ball. So, as a replacement for Calvin Phillips, him and Roca, obviously him on his own isn't good enough, but do you think they'll be able to make up for what they're losing in Calvin Phillips going to Man City for 45 million pounds?
Look, there's only one Calvin Phillips. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a rough, I think especially beginning of the season, we might struggle. Uh, Losing potentially our two best players is definitely not going to be easy. But I like that dual six partnership, that double pivot. I think that they complement each other well, Raka and Adams, because Adams is obviously that ball winning guy, and Raka is able to move the ball more fluidly and make better passes. And so I think that actually this does the addition of these two players probably do fit Jesse's system a bit better because they complement each other and we're not solely relying on this one guy to play make from the back anymore. But it's still going to be tough. Calvin Phillips is not only was he a fantastic player, but he's a club legend, Yorkshire Peerlove. So it's going to be really, really tough to replace Calvin Phillips, but I think that they should get the job done.
I do think we'll definitely see Adams get plenty of minutes. I don't think minutes are a question for him, especially whether it be that traditional 4-2-3-1 or the high pressing 4-2-2-2, there's plenty of room for him in either of those double pivots. Now we're going to move on a little bit to the coach, Jesse Marsch, who is the third American coach in the Premier League, but the first one who has really been getting this much attention and has been getting this much backing and opportunities to succeed. And he kept Leeds in the Premier League by the skin of their teeth on the final day. And now the board is letting him get his guys. They've really been backing him. He's already made several signings, 2 Americans, several other guys from the Red Bull system that he's coached in the past. So what's the perception been of Jesse Marsch by Leeds United fans in general? And what's the expectation for him this season, given that he spent so much money on bringing in his guys?
So starting off, like when he first came in the club, obviously, there are tons of people that were skeptical. An American coach that, to be frank, he doesn't have the best resume. He had a good spell at Salzburg. He won like league cup, and he won the Austrian league, but he didn't do anything spectacular in the Champions League. And then obviously his time in Leipzig wasn't anything to write about. So I think they were skeptical, certainly because of his resume and also his nationality. I mean, that's just a given that an American coach is gonna have to face some adversity in that way. But yeah, I think as he began to play more and obviously as he began to win and he kept us in the Premier League, people and the fans started to warm up to him a bit. So I think at this stage, the fans are certainly more confident in him than they were right when he was appointed. I think that he does feel a bit more welcomed at this stage, but there's still tons of skepticism, and it's never going to be easy to be an American coach. You can, in the Premier League, you can be winning every single game and you still have haters somewhere. So in terms of his backing, I actually think that he will get his time. I think that they'll let him sort of lose a couple games and let him stay, because I actually remember hearing that they planned on keeping Marsch even if we got relegated, which, that's always good to hear, that they have faith in our manager and they have faith that he's going to stay for a long-term project rather than just like plugging a hole that Bielsa left. So I do believe that, especially with all this money that they're giving him, that they do see Marsch as sort of a long-term project and not just filling a hole. And so I think that it's possible that he takes a dip in form, the team starts losing games, and we keep our faith in him and let him have his run. But that being said, if he does do extremely poorly, obviously he will get sacked. But I think that he will last a year. I think Leeds stay up. I think he lasts the year, and hopefully he lasts for a lot longer than just a year.
So do you think that maybe having the minority, like 46% owners being the American 49ers group, do you think that is a part of him getting a longer leash than maybe a Bob Bradley did, where he really only got about 6 or 8 games and he was out the window? Do you think that having the American owners maybe helps him get that extra backing he needs to get treated like any other manager would, where maybe in the past American managers didn't quite get the same respect that a French or an English manager would?
Yeah, I think that definitely was an aspect of it, that the American owners were going to put more backing into an American coach. I think that's totally fair. But I think another reason why we're putting so much faith in Jesse is really because of how successful Bielsa was and how he sort of is similar to Bielsa in a way. Like Bielsa is known for high energy pressing football that he really implemented into the club DNA over the past 3 years. And so I think that is one of the reasons too, is that Jesse sort of, reminds people of Bielsa in the way that he presses and plays the high energy soccer. And so I think, of course, the 49ers ownership does help Jesse. Like, they have more faith in him. They have more trust in the American. Although I think that it's actually like his soccer philosophy itself that is really doing most of the heavy lifting.
All right, I just have two more questions for you. The first one is kind of related to the last question, as opposed to the ownership, how they perceive Jesse Marsch and how he's doing. What about the fans at Leeds United? Does him being an American and bringing in a lot of Americans as well, are you worried that if things maybe aren't going to plan, that a lot of that blame is going to go straight to Jesse Marsch and the Americans that he brought in, as opposed to whether it would be certain other players, like it might be if it wasn't an American, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen people talking about how, there are 4 Spaniards on our team, 2 Americans, like 2 Welsh players. Yet everyone's talking about how this is like a totally American club. Like it's a totally new thing for there to be 2 Americans. So in one regard, it is true that there are only 2 American players, 1 American coach, that it would be a bit unfair to give all the blame. But on the other hand, we spent 50 million pounds on Americans. We have an American coach. And so I think the perception will certainly be blame the Americans, which I'm not focused on right now. I don't think that's any way to think about your own club, is think, oh, if we get relegated, who gets blamed? If you really believe in yourself, and Aaronson and Adams, they're betting on themselves. If you really believe in yourself, then you play and you don't think about what happens if you get relegated. And Marsch certainly isn't thinking who's going to get the blame if we go down. He's thinking, what do I need to do to stay up? So I think hypothetically, if we were to go down, yeah, it would probably set back, the perception of American soccer in England, certainly. But, I'm not really worried about that. I'm not thinking about relegation. And I think that, on the other hand, if we do succeed, then that will equally impact U.S. soccer in a positive way. So I think there's a lot to lose, but there's also a lot to gain.
The final question I wanted to ask you, and that we can discuss a little bit, it's not just Brenden Aaronson and Tyler Adams coming in. As we mentioned, Mark Roca, Luis Sinistera from Feyenoord, and Rasmus Christensen, also from RB Salzburg, are coming into the club. So that's 5 signings, Calvin Phillips, and it looks like Rafinha leaving. Do you think that these players coming in make the team better than they were last season, or do you think they've gotten worse? Because it was a 17th place finish last season. They survived relegation by, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2 points. Do you think that, obviously it's multiple players coming in to replace just 2, but do they make the team better, or are you more concerned about relegation?
So if Phillips and Rafinha leave, our team is worse. If our best 11 that we put on the field is going to be worse. However, that doesn't mean that we're going to have a worse season, because we had a good team last season filled with injuries. Like, tons of our players got injured. Phillips got injured. Dallas got injured. Ailing got injured. Bamford injured. So we had tons of injuries to deal with, and we had a bit of a thin squad. Bielsa is sort of known for having these thin squads, and obviously the high intensity training and games that lead to tired legs and possibly more injuries. So we had a good team that had a lot of injuries and not a lot of good backups. I think now we'll have our best 11 won't be as good as it was before because Phillips and Rafinha are incredible players, two of the best players that have ever played for this club. So I think our best 11 will probably be worse, but we will be a lot more well prepared for any injuries or any setbacks that come our way. That we'll be a lot more. We have a much more deep squad now, and we have a squad that is more prepared for any adversity that we face within the season.
So, Henry, thank you for coming on the channel. It's been very nice to have you. I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point. But yeah, Leeds United, 3 Americans, 2 on the field, 1 in the dugout, and maybe a few more. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow Henry. I'll put his links in the description. But yeah, we will see you guys later. Thank you.